Welcome to Our Future is Kind, a podcast exploring how we build the future we want to live in, one kind act at a time. I'm your host, Michael G. Neese, president of Our Future is Kind, and your trusted companion as we search out kindness strategies we can use in our everyday lives. Together, as we chase the idea of building a kinder future, we will interview experts in kindness, team building, human motivation, corporate culture building, relationships, plus politicians, artists, and those with a vision for a healthy and kind future, one we all want to live in and deserve to enjoy together. In addition to interviews, we will consider positive depictions of humanity's future in art, literature, the movies, and media. And we will issue kindness challenges each week, give an update about Our Future is Kind, the company, and what it's doing to stay true to its mission. So, let's dive in. Amber Boaz entered Salesforce universe in late 2008 and was immediately smitten. Since then, she's passed 14 certification exams, founded or co-founded 5 user groups, Nonprofit UG, Dev Meetup, Architect, Women in Tech, and Slack, started a weekly Salesforce Saturday in Central NC, and is an 8-time Dreamforce speaker. Amber has been a Salesforce.com MVP since 2011. Amber Boaz, welcome to the program.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so happy to have you here from your home in North Carolina.
Yeah. Middle of the state, man.
Right, with well, I don't know what time this is going to be releasing, but right now it is pollen season, right?
The pollening.
Yes. So much fun for all of us. Listen, I just introduced you to the Our Future is Kind podcast audience. I want you to introduce yourself. Please tell me, what makes you, you?
Oh boy, what makes me, me? I am a wife and a sister and a daughter and a dog mom. Those are the big things. I am a fan of community theater and chocolate cake and gin. I am a tech nerd who strives to speak business to business people. Yeah, I'm a lot of things.
I have to ask: is the chocolate cake and the gin, does that go together? Is that?
Look, I'm not going to tell you how to do your life.
Great response. I love it. Okay, well, very cool. It's good to have you on the program. I wanted to have you here just because you have a really good perspective on what it means to be kind. We happen to know each other from a previous life, and I know your parents and your brother a little bit, but you've always struck me as somebody who just has this kind streak running through who you are. And so, a couple of the things that I wanted to ask you about really pertain to, how do you help people? I know that you have all these great certifications and this history with Salesforce, but what do you do? I mean, what is your day-to-day? How are you helping other people?
Yeah, so some of it's structured, some of it's unstructured. So day to day, I have a couple of mentees who I work with, mostly folks who are either coming into the Salesforce ecosystem from another job, right? They're a former teacher or they're a former project manager in some other capacity, bringing them into the proverbial fold. Actually, yesterday I spoke to a senior who's getting ready to graduate from college with the same degree that I have. So I was kind of coaching her along. She asked me, should I be more technical or should more project managery? And I was like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? I can't tell you that. That's a you problem, lady.
Very much so.
But those coaching conversations, those kind of I was going to say advice, but it's not advice. Very rarely is it you should do this. It's more coming from a place of curiosity of one of the things she asked was, should I move to another city or where should I move? And I said, well, okay, so why? Like, are you want to get out of the Southeast? You want to less humidity, you want to, be in an odd number zip code. Like, why? Why do you want to move? So having those conversations, just, it's more helping people to think about why they're asking the question they're asking of me. And that's the kind of the unstructured. In a structured way, I do a kind of office hours with a local nonprofit who has moved into the Salesforce universe. And so every Wednesday morning at 8:30, we get together, and I'm usually barely awake and trying to down enough swallows of coffee to be coherent. But we talk about Salesforce, we talk about their reporting needs, we talk about, technology in general. How do they project manage? How do they, structure documentation, kind of some of the nerdy stuff, but also in a very accessible and not talk downy to way. Tech folks don't have the best reputation for being open and accessible. There's a reason the RTFM acronym exists. I don't know if you want to put that in the show notes.
We'll let people look that up on their own.
Yeah, folks, go ahead and Google that one yourselves. Maybe not on the family computer. But having being kind of arrogant and snobby is the reputation, right? Of like, oh, you don't know that? Ew.
Right.
And that is not how I approach things, right? You're coming at a new topic to you with a beginner's mind. You've coming to me because you either I have expertise or you think I have expertise.
Right.
And so, let's talk through what you're looking at, what you're dealing with, what you're struggling with. And hopefully at the other end, you have an approach that you're comfortable with or feel better about. That's been my go-to. I do other volunteering. I do other, miscellaneous things, but those are the two kind of big, loom large in my world things.
Well, it sounds like the thread or a thread that runs through all of this is that you're helping people navigate change.
Yes.
And I'm curious about that because, man, it is sometimes hard for people to be kind to each other when big, scary things are going on and people aren't really 100% sure, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my job? How do I have to change what I do? Can you talk a little bit about how you help people navigate change?
Change is hard. Change is really hard. In my world, tech is easy, people are hard, right? That people have feelings and kids and dogs and cats and mortgages and the sprinkler system that leaked for the 87th time, and stuff is going on in their world that isn't this new process at work that Amber says we need to do. And so coming at those conversations around the proverbial moving people's cheese. So the book Who Moved My Cheese is a great change management book for anybody who hasn't read it. It's a quick read too. I don't know if you're familiar. It's pretty fantastic. Yeah.
Years back.
Yeah. And they've done a revise anyway. But the moving people's cheese is inherently kind of, the change is scary. Is this going to? Let me say this. I think especially in our jobs, we get to the point where we're comfortable with the work we're doing, and it becomes muscle memory. There's challenges, there's ups and downs. But then somebody changes a process, and now you've got to focus on a thing in either in a net new way or in a changed way. And that requires emotional energy that you may not have because you're going through a divorce or, your mom's dying of cancer or the sprinkler system broke for the 7th time, right? Right. And so it can be perhaps more emotionally charged than it should be. Right. We're literally just asking you to use a different form. Like, why are you crying in my office?
Right. Well, yeah. Life is hard sometimes. Yeah.
Life is hard. Right. And we're all having a hard go, right? Like everybody has bad days. Everybody has bad seasons of life, where things are extra. And so knowing that the people around you aren't NPCs, to use a
right.
The
non-player character, yes.
Right, exactly. Like they have sprinkler systems and aging parents, and they may have to poop. Like the reason they cut you off in traffic is they're heading home quickly.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
And so it's not about you or the change that you made. The kind of the you inflicting it on them. It's they're dealing with their own stuff, and so how to have space for that, give people grace, but also just acknowledge like, yeah, this is hard and it's different, and we're gonna, support you in this change, but it's happening, it's coming. It's funny you mentioned, kind of the through line in my intro. I don't know if you knew this, but both of my parents are trained social workers.
Oh, I did know. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so they met in school. And so there's kind of this helping kind of through line in my genetics, probably.
Yeah.
Just of, here I'm very aware of the privilege that I have in all the spices and ways and flavors that comes in. And so when I have bandwidth to help, I do my best to help.
Well, yeah, my philosophy is very much if we're not here for each other, then why are we here?
Yeah. What even is the point?
Yes.
Right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So another big piece that comes with change and with helping people and with having all of these, human feelings and interactions about the technology or just about the humans is communication. Boy, we think we're good at it, and boy, do we botch it a lot of the time. Can you talk to me about what your strategies are to try to get it right in the first place, and then maybe also on the cleanup? Because sometimes you'll be helping multiple people, I'm guessing,
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And sometimes they don't communicate quite the way that they wish they had, or the way that you would have preferred. So what's your strategy? How do you help people communicate better?
Yeah, a lot of what I do is communicate frankly, via Slack, via, tech, you know, chat
Texting.
communications.
Yeah.
And so it's nonverbal. It's not that you don't get the nuance, you don't get the sarcasm. And so I am a heavy user of emojis. Like if you took my emojis from me,
Mhm. Yes.
I would be a very sad panda. Um, Emojis and animated GIFs, right? Like those are my love language.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I work really hard to meet people where they are, right?
Yeah.
This is I have to have a hard conversation with you. Would you like to have this in person, or would it be better, to do this via chat? Or, you know, I I try I try to mirror how they approach communication.
Hmm.
Very rarely are you communicating with someone net new that you've well, that's not true. I was going to say rarely do you communicate with someone that new that you've never talked to before, and so you kind of can have a feel for how they communicate. But
Right.
literally this morning, I needed to not text. I needed to send a Slack message to a coworker who I've never interacted with, and I said, I need your help on this thing, and I didn't give him enough context, and he came back and he was like, "Great to meet you. What do you want?" I'm sorry, what?
Right.
And so I started with, I'm like, sorry, I thought you had more context than you do. Let me explain. And I went into more detail. And so
Right.
that place of, I think it comes from a place of curiosity of, how does this person best receive information? How does this person, what are they likely to react to here? Am I giving them bad news? Am I giving them good news? Did they win the lottery or are they getting fired? And
Right.
that's a continuum
Right.
of goodness
Right.
and badness. But, what are uh, and being very concise, I think has, helps me, like here, here's the context, here's what I need from you. And usually I reverse that. Here's what I need from you and here's why, especially for like managers and executives of who they have 10 seconds between meetings. What I need from you is for you to know this happened, no action needed. So when I don't need them to do anything, I tell them that, it's like, I just need you to know.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
freak out. Like, I just need you to have this information.
Right.
So that's been, communicating change. If you can keep it lighthearted, and,
Mm.
and it depends on the seriousness of the thing, right? Like, you're not gonna, tell your kids you're getting divorced with balloons. Like that's not a thing.
Right. Right.
Like
Right.
that's not how you do that.
Not sure
Um,
that would go well.
no, that wouldn't go well. But,
Yeah.
for example, a couple jobs ago, we were rolling out some new software for how our salespeople did quotes. And it
Mm.
was a significant change for them. Like it was a whole new system and the process was different and all the things. And the way we announced it was we had a series of flyers, one every week for 6 weeks, that was kind of like, ooh, this is coming. It's pretty exciting. You'll be able to do these things you couldn't do before. And ooh, this is awesome. And in order to kind of catch people off guard, we literally put them on the back of the doors of the stalls and the toilets.
Ah, okay.
A, captive audience.
Sure.
B, it was a little irreverent. It was like, you are going to get to do this cool new thing, and it's coming soon on this date. Get ready, get excited. And it was colorful, and it was kind of, a little bit snarky. There may have been some poop jokes. I'm not
Yes.
going to lie,
Get
because
ready to lose your poop over this.
right, because when in Rome.
Yeah.
But it was definitely it really helped with people knowing what was coming and being kind of emotionally ready for the change. If we had said on the day of, like, by the way, your whole world's different, that would not have flown.
Sure.
And so the kind of the build up of, so having a communication plan for those bigger, more involved things, is especially important when you're changing how someone does their job.
Yeah, the navigation of change and having the right communications around it. I know that you also have to have after support because adoption
Absolutely.
of something new is not a
Absolutely.
guarantee. And then
Right.
people who like are not like if you don't have touch points along the way
Right.
afterwards,
Right.
and just say, oh, just reach out if you have a question. People sometimes don't even know what to ask. They just feel
Right.
stuck, right?
Right. Right.
You know.
And so having that plan in place, and in fact, it's interesting you bring that up. That particular project went live. The corporate headquarters is in Boston, and I was commuting back and forth from Durham, North Carolina to Boston, Massachusetts
Mm.
during that kind of build up to that. And then the month after that went live, I lived in Boston. I had an Airbnb
Oh,
two
great.
blocks from the office, and I was working 14-hour days, and we were, heads down, and I would back to my Airbnb to sleep. Like, that was where I showered and stored my stuff. Like, I was in the office. Um, because we needed to be available to folks, but I knew that going in. We had a plan. I had a plan not only with the work folks, but with my husband. Like, I'm leaving for a month. I'm going to be gone. Like, what
Right.
do you need from me? Um, and so, making that plan ahead of time made a ton of difference. But we had, there were some folks who took to it immediately. This is awesome. Change is good. Let's do it. And we had some stragglers who struggled quite a bit, who weren't willing to do the pre-work, who were, angry we had moved their cheese. And they, some were more vocal than others. Some were more appropriate in their vocalness than others. Um, but there was an element of like, no, this is happening, and I get that you're angry about it, but you can either, be angry about it someplace else. You don't have to do it here. In fact, you don't get to do it here. Or we can help you overcome this, whatever it is wherever it is that you're stuck. Um, and that we did have balloons for that.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because people along that continuum, you may have somebody who's been around for a while. Hey, we've always done it this way. And they're
Exactly.
extremely good at doing it, in the methods that they already know. And you might have somebody, and I know this is stereotyping, but you might have somebody who's a little bit younger. They have some more current information that they just got from a college program, and they're
Right.
eager, they're ready to run. And sometimes during that, the meeting of those minds, you can find that there's a differential, and sometimes there's a little bit of mockery of like,
Oh, sure.
why can't you pick this up, granddad, and that kind of
Right.
thing. So how do you navigate that? How do you get people on the same page of like, hey, it's okay that this person's taking more time, and it's okay that this person is going leaps and bounds. How do you keep them kind of on that even playing field so that nobody's mad at anybody?
Yeah, we worked really hard in that particular project, and we worked really hard we had what we call champions, where we enlisted the help of folks kind of across the organization at various levels to get a sneak peek. So like we couched it as like, you get to get a sneak peek and give feedback. But what we were really doing was kind of getting them excited about this change. I mean, we were doing both, but getting them excited about this change so that they could then be that kind of first line of defense from the defensiveness.
Yes.
Um, so they were, deeply, they were on the sales floor, two desks down from the person who didn't want to do it.
Right.
And so they were the hand holders that were kind of again, that first line. And then if they couldn't help or there was some other thing, then it escalated to my team. Um, but it was definitely a peer-to-peer kind of level one, we're in this together, and management also really didn't focus on I mean, this is a sales tool, and salespeople are kind of inherently competitive. Like, I've never met a salesperson that wasn't competitive. I'm sure they exist. I just don't know any. Um, but the management didn't do oh, you've done seven and you've only done three. Oh, like they didn't do any of that.
Okay.
It was more of a, how do we help you get to seven?
Right.
And so, or maybe five is the appropriate number, and we've got an overachiever who has some bandwidth, to help, somebody's metrics come up. So it was very collaborative and team buildingy, but yeah, we definitely had some folks who were, I had to have some conversations with some people who were being negative Nancy's.
Right. Right. Nothing against people named Nancy, by the way. Just so that
All
yeah.
Nancy's are lovely, except the
Yes.
negative ones.
There you go. There you go. So navigating change and communicating well and getting people what they need in a timely fashion, helping them, get up to speed on all of these new things. You mentioned that you don't do this just in one context. You do it in a couple. So you mentioned nonprofit. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that particular mode?
Yeah, nonprofits are a different beast.
They are.
You have in general, and I'm going to grossly generalize here, that in general, they are folks who are not as tech savvy. In general, they are folks who are very focused on the mission, and anything that gets in the way of whatever the mission is secondary at best. And so entering data into a database is not a thing that they want to spend their time on. I don't want them spending their time entering data into a database, but we have to have that data in order to aggregate it, in order to put those numbers in grant applications, in order to get more money so we can have more people doing the mission, right? So tying you need to enter this data because here's where that ends up. Like here's the end in mind. It has been really helpful in communicating with folks who are very mission driven. Saving the whales, helping people get jobs, helping kids learn to read. Those are all laudable goals that I can only get behind. Entering data into a database. There is no nonprofit that is, more data and databases for everyone. Like, that's not a thing.
Right.
It's a means to an end. And so helping people see that end and understanding how what they do is the means.
Right.
Is important. And so it's again, it's a communication thing, right? Here's, the reason we need this information from you is we're going to roll it up, and that information is going to go in this grant application that could end us up with this, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in funding for our organization. So, are you familiar with WIFM? The what's in it for me?
Oh yes.
Yeah, the WIFM is kind of the foundation of communication, right? Like, I need you to know something. I need to understand why you should care about the thing if I expect you to do anything.
Right. Yeah. Tying things back to purpose is so critical. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You've mentioned that you have a family. One of the first things that you did when you described yourself was that you said that you're a wife. You've mentioned your parents and so forth. Tell me a little bit about that context. You don't have to go into super detail, but just like, what are the principles of kindness within your family structure? How do you, navigate?
You want the tea on my brother, don't you? That's what you want.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Tell me all about it. No, I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, we are so tied to family when we're also doing work. Like you have said, you could be going through something where you have a critically ill parent, or you're having struggles within your marriage, and that all of that plays into your workspace. What is your philosophy? How do you know if you're getting it right? What do you do when it doesn't work well?
I don't know that any of us know when we're getting it right. I don't think there is a right, and I would argue that the only way you're even close to right is if you and the people around you aren't in active conflict. Maybe that's too strong of a. What works for me won't work for you. What works for me doesn't work for my husband. What works for me doesn't work for my mom, right? Like we're, very different humans, and thank God. And
I hear you.
can you imagine two Ambers?
Hey, double the fun, more to love. Yeah.
No, that would be, it's like matter and antimatter, like the universe implodes. No, I think so. You know this, but your listeners don't. I'm the oldest daughter, and oldest daughters tend to be the ones that older relatives lean on for, that families lean on for that caregiver role
Yeah.
when the parents are aging. That tends to be the truth. My brother and I have done a very good job of splitting that workload in a way that is, I feel it's pretty equal. I don't know that well, he would have said something if he didn't. Um,
There's a lot of honesty in your family. It's good.
there's a lot, yeah, we're pretty good about that. But I also think, you know, we have different skills. I, you know, I don't, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say I'm the planner and my brother is the doer, right? You ask him to plan, that's not his strong suit. I don't have the bandwidth to do with my job and my other life obligations. And so when something big needs to happen, moving mom into independent living out of her house and selling her house and downsizing her, world, I was the planner and he was the doer. And that worked out pretty well, mostly. There were hiccups because that's not ever an easy thing.
Sure.
But we divided and conquered there. My brother and I are very, very different people.
Sure.
Like how did we grow up in the same house? Different. Um, but we are better and better in communicating and in kind of acknowledging our differences. It helps to not be teenagers in the same house.
Sure.
That
Good.
you know, we are both more human to each other than we were in the past. It's interesting. My relationship with my brother is wild. Both of our parents have their physical difficulties, have they're in their late 70s or early 80s, both of them, and they're both local, and so dealing with physician visits and check-ins and making sure that folks are getting what they need, without being all up in their business in a way that is overbearing or unnecessary.
Sure.
I don't need to care for my mom any more than she needs me to, right? Like
Yeah.
and so when there's conflict around, what is enough,
Right.
having those kind of family meetings and saying, okay, here's what I'm seeing, here's what I think needs to happen. Let's talk about it. And so we do a pretty good job of that. Some days are better than others.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. It is an imperfect art form to be a family member, to communicate well with your family members and all of
Yes.
that. But it sounds like your strategy is an awful lot of, again, communicating,
Absolutely.
raising your hand if something's not quite going right. Is that?
Yes, absolutely. And raising your hand if something's not quite going right, and being able, then this is kind of where the self-awareness comes in, is being able to identify what you need different.
Hmm.
I'm feeling scared, and what I need to be different is, mom, you to not live alone in a big house. I need you to move into independent living.
Right.
You know, and and she could have pushed back and said, not only no, but hell no. She could have, but she heard me and my brother say, nope, I hear you. You're scared for me. I don't want that. I'll
Yeah.
move. And so being able to, and this is years of therapy. Don't get me wrong. Like, this is not a second nature thing, but being able to identify what those feelings are and put words around them, and what we need to be different is a superpower.
Crafting the I statements can be hard if you want the other person to be the bad object. If you want them to be,
Right.
well, like
Right.
you own how bad I'm feeling right now because of your
Right.
actions or your inactions, your words or something
Right.
like that. Sometimes we can lapse into that. But I love the fact that you
Sure.
brought up therapy because I think it's some of the best money you can ever spend.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Therapy is invaluable. I think one of the things, and this was years ago, this was 3 or 4 therapists ago, but one of the things that we kind of came to was, it's not me against you. It's you and me against the problem, whatever
Right.
the problem is, right? The problem is I'm scared because mom's living alone and, she doesn't, 2 o'clock in the morning, the power goes out and she doesn't know what to do. Like, I'm scared that something's going to happen in that time before I wake up and see your text message and can go, help you.
Right. Right.
So but the problem isn't mom. The problem is how do we change up the living situation so that she's happy and I'm happy, right? Like, those kinds of compromises and just having the conversation. That way, none of us were looking forward to that conversation when it happened.
Sure.
That was not a fun Saturday afternoon, but it needed to happen, and it happened, and here we are a couple of years later, and everything's sunshine and glitter. So.
Yeah, there's a great book. It's more of a graphic novel almost that's called something along the lines of Can we please talk about something else? That's just all about trying to do elder care the right way and trying to have those good relationships between the, people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s who are trying to take care of those parents who are, 20 or 30 years older.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be a big challenge.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
And it's that reversal of role, right?
Yeah.
It's that, your parents care for you for the first 20 years and you care for them for their last 20.
Right.
That's a generalization, but
Sure.
that's, more often than not true. And so one of the things I found too is at least here locally, there are a ton of support groups for daughters daughters who are caregivers.
Right.
There's a virtual support group. There's in-person support groups, through the medical system, through Duke Medical System here in Durham. They have fantastic resources for, folks like us who are dealing with these kinds of things. And again, and it's kind of therapy and it's, kind of just, how are you dealing with this thing? But it's super helpful to know you're not alone and to have somebody to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, that's great. It's a wonderful resource, and those will be in the show notes for those of you who are tuned in to Amber Boaz's great wisdom. Have no fear, we will capture all of this for you. So, Amber, you are on a show called Our Future is Kind podcast. And part of what we do here is we ask our guests to help us envision what a kind future should look like. I know the word should is a little touchy, but let's face it, if we don't envision what a kinder world could look like, we don't have a target. And without a target, you have nothing to aim at.
Yep.
So let's do a little thought experiment.
Okay.
It is 100 years from now. It's 2125. Any nieces, nephews, children that we all have, even they are probably not here anymore. If you add 100 to your age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're talking about, a generation or two beyond that, and that's what they're living in. If we do it all the right way, if we have helped each other and heard each other and supported each other and done great things on this earth for those 100 years, and you and I hop into our time machine and we appear in 2125, what are you looking for? What confirms that we got it right?
I think decreased inequality, just across the board, across all the things, decreased inequality. I think a healthier planet. Without getting too in the weeds, leadership at the local, state, and federal level that is compassionate and interested in serving the many instead of the few. And fundamentally, honestly, I think kind of all of it comes from an individual curiosity. Me being curious about how you feel about taxes, agricultural, policy, me being curious about your stance on those things and someone else's stance on those things and someone else's stance on those things. And being willing to be wrong. I think one of the things that we have lost is it being okay to change your mind and for that to be not only okay, but that process to be encouraged. and fostered. We're so. I read someone. I read an insane amount of feminist Christian nonfiction
Sure.
reasons, and in one of the books, one of the authors said something along the lines of like the original sin of the United States is being right.
Mm. Yeah.
And that hit me. We have to, and it's I'm right. Therefore, if you don't agree with me, you are wrong. And wrong means bad, and wrong means, doesn't deserve humane treatment, and wrong mean right, like, what wrong means is dangerous somehow. So again, being able to change your mind and have compassion for those who don't agree with you. So I think, I'm picturing a world, I'm kind of picturing that, kind of storybook world in 2125 of, a kid running through a field of sunflowers, kind of, classic movie trope kind of, but, I think, more time and energy to be outdoors in a healthy space, not having to work 3 jobs to pay the rent, medical care, for everybody. And not just like, I would include eyes and teeth in that. Like,
Sure.
why those are separate I don't understand that.
Because it's more money.
Yeah, right, exactly. But that those things are a human right, and those are, I think our successors will look back at this time as a very, like, almost as barbaric in
Sure.
our insistence on some of the current systems. So I think that's, I would hope very much that that's where we head.
One of my favorite psychoanalysts is Brad Reedy. He has a great podcast, Finding You. And he talks an awful lot about the tendency for us to try to be right, to try to be good, or to try to be right.
Yep.
And one of the things that, and I could be misquoting him, and if I am, Dr. Reedy, I apologize. But it's something along the lines of, not only are we trying to be right and to try to punish others who are not right, we are also then trying to fabricate truths after the fact if we were wrong about something, because we are so bent on being right. We'd rather lie about getting something a little bit wrong than be truthful about it and learn and grow, because it's too scary. It's too big a thing. So
does he attribute that to being human or to being an American in this time and space?
I don't know that he's declared one or the other,
Okay.
But certainly our societal norm is to try to train ourselves up to be good and to be right, and that is pervasive in this particular.
Puritans, the Calvinists.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It is a really interesting circumstance. So yeah, theoretically, if we are ending up with a future where people are less focused on that and more focused on, like you said, the listening and hearing and being curious about each other, I love that. Well, of course, embedded in this big thought experiment is not just, hey, what are you looking for to see if we got it right? The question also now is, what are those right actions that we did? What are the good, courageous, effective things we invested our time in to get us there? What do you think?
I think so. One of the things that I learned from my social worker parents is the only thing you have control over is your reaction to things. Literally, that's the only thing you have control over is your own actions, which is both empowering and disheartening.
Yes, they agree on both counts. Yeah.
And so so it starts with me. What can I, Amber, do to move us towards that sunshine and sunflowers and glitter and puppies? How can I add to that? And I think it comes back to curiosity. How do I what can I be curious about today to move us in that direction? What can I what can I learn about that will help me understand the world better? Right now, because there is kind of an extra dose of turmoil, I'm, for reasons that I don't think I can fully articulate, I'm very focused on furniture restoration videos on YouTube.
Okay. All right.
Again, I don't have an explanation for why. But I think it's part of it's like it's taking something that is, old and loved and turning it into something new that someone else can love. And it's renewing, it's taking something that would otherwise end up in a landfill and putting it in someone's front room, or making it attractive enough to put in someone's front room. The handicraft of it, the physicality of it, I really enjoy the satisfying, like, scrape the paint stripper and the paint off the wood and like
Sure.
it glops, and then there's a gorgeous like tiger maple or tiger oak pattern. Anyway, but that curiosity of, I guarantee you that 90% of these folks that I'm watching would disagree with me on something that I believe in. And so how do we be curious about this thing together that we have in common, even though it may be the only thing we have in common? Because ultimately we're all, put our pants on one leg at a time. We all poop,
Yes.
like we're all just human beings trying to be on this planet together. Hopefully in a sane and constructive way. So I think it comes back to curiosity. I really tie those together pretty tightly. Being curious about other people and their needs and their wants and their life stories and, all that cool stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like a great formula for attempting to build that kind of future. So I love it. Again, for those of you who are tuned in, we'll make sure to capture some of these suggestions and maybe some of these furniture restoration video links. We might even include a couple of those in there. You strike me as being somebody who does take ownership over where you're going and what you know how to do and how to help other people. I want to know, when things are not great, when things are hard, what do you do to try to be inspired? How do you pick yourself back up? What are the things you reach for? Is it a movie? Is it a set of books? We know about the furniture videos. We got that part, but
Yeah, it's snuggling with my dog. He's a source of great joy for me. It's walking outside with or without the dog. Just being in the sunshine helps. We're also a Lego household in this house, and so, playing with Lego just is a kind of a nice mind. I was going to say numbing, and numbing's not the right word. Zone-outable.
sure.
That's not a great
You're getting
way to
into
put it
the
either.
zone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And so we have lots of Lego in this house, but making a thing that is art, in my opinion. Even though you're following instructions, even though you're given plastic pieces, it's art. And so art is another way to, we have a local, it's called the Scrap Exchange. It's a local place where folks can donate
I've been there. Yeah, it's great.
all sorts of things, but they, you can turn them into cool art projects. And it's fantastic. I love the Scrap Exchange. And so going there and finding some random stuff and then making a thing.
Right.
I also, I do some meditation, some kind of going inwards, some journaling. What is it that I'm feeling and why am I feeling it? And how do I kind of release it to the universe? And try to kind of, let that thing go. I try really hard to not live in the past. That is hard for me. Someone once said that living in the past, depression is living in the past and anxiety is living in the future.
Interesting.
And I went, oh shit, they're right.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I guess I should live here then. And so trying to be in the present, trying to live in the present, not easy, but trying to do more of that when things get down. Again, therapy. I highly recommend, if you need it, medication. Better Living Through Chemistry. I am a huge fan. If that's a thing that your brain needs, by all means, Godspeed. But yeah, hug the puppy.
Yeah. Great advice. I love that. So everybody who's listening in right now is also hopefully interested in getting some tips and tricks on how to be kinder, how to invest in building a kindness practice. So what do you do? How do you mindfully try to cultivate a kinder Amber? And what ways can people in the audience maybe grab hold of and try?
Yeah, I think that I try really hard when I find myself getting frustrated or riled up, remembering that maybe they just need to poop. Like I keep going back to that, but like that's that is a universal thing.
Right.
Everybody poops per the seminal text from the
Yes.
the seminal
Children's
text
book is amazing. Yes.
that is a board book. But nobody's very, very rarely is somebody working to piss me off or rile my feathers or get in my way. They're just doing their life, and it was, not an unhappy accident. And so, to the extent that I can remember that, and again, easy, that's helpful. And that's more in kind of reaction to stuff happening around me that may be unkind.
Right.
As far as me being, doing kind things or being actively kind, I was trying to think kind of what is the precipitating event there, and I'm struggling a little bit because it is very much just kind of part of who I am. I tend to give money to don't email me with your fundraiser. Like I can't afford for you to email me with I tend to, I probably give more than I should. I am I don't know how to do it more. I don't know how to do it better.
Right.
I just know that it's if you are consciously trying to do it, you're doing it.
Right. Right. I love that. Yeah. No, I mean, it's to be mindful is a big piece of cultivating and building a kindness practice.
Yep.
So that's great advice. Yeah. So I can't believe the time has blown by.
It's been amazing.
But I want you to tell me, what are you working on next? What's your big project? What's something that you're excited about right now? What's next for Amber Boaz?
What's next for Amber Boaz? I have a meeting after this call.
That's incredibly literal of you. Yes.
It's actually kind of interesting. So it's with my great grand boss. So my boss's boss's boss.
Okay.
About a project I'm working on at work to help us better measure how we are engaging with our customers. And so it's going to involve not only the bits and bobs of things as mundane as activity tracking, but thinking about, what is the right amount of activity? How many times should you email a customer under the following circumstances? What's a good number to work towards? And so thinking about those things is interesting to me, not only from the kind of pre-sales side of things, but the post-sales side of things, and the maintain the relationship side of things. Because having been a customer, there is a fine line between enough and too much.
Sure. Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yes.
And so thinking about that in a smart way is exciting to me.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. Yeah, I worked in an industry where somebody would ask you to do something, but then they would ping you every 30 minutes or so on the messaging app saying, "Hey, how's it going? Hey, are you working on this? What's the next thing? When do you think you'll have it done by?" And yeah, as a leader, I had to essentially say, you need to leave my people alone, because otherwise there is cognitive switching that's going on here. It's I'm now thinking about how I'm doing instead of what I'm doing.
Right.
And that can be a problem. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how can people get in touch with you if they want to get more of your wisdom or follow what you're doing and cheer you on?
So I am on LinkedIn, Amber Boaz. I am on Blue Sky. I'm Amber9904, all over there. Those are probably the best ways to find me on the interwebs. Otherwise, you'll see me out walking my dog if you happen to be in Durham.
That's wonderful. All right, Amber, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. This was super fun.
This episode's Kindness Challenge. Before your next conversation, ask yourself these 3 questions. What might this person be going through that I don't know? Can I meet them with curiosity instead of correction? How can I speak in a way that builds connection, not confusion? Want to stay inspired so you can stay kind? Go for a long walk, listen to a podcast, or be in silence, but just get outside. Try a creative reset. Visit a scrap art store or tinker with something you can just build with your hands. Watch furniture restoration videos on YouTube. Amber swears by the calm, satisfying transformation. And always hug the dog. Thanks again for listening to our Future is Kind podcast, a podcast in search of a kinder future. Go out there and do something kind.